and welcome to Best Laid Plans. This is your host, Sarah Hart-Unger, and this is a podcast where we talk all things planning and planning adjacent. Now, if I sound more warmed up or rehearsed than I do usually, that is because this is the third take of this episode. And if it makes anybody feel better, even people who have been podcasting for nearly a decade sometimes record with their voice on mute for a solid 6 minutes. So here we are again. But today I'm going to bring you hopefully a really fun episode on task management. I feel like task management is one of the most common things I get emailed about and asked about in my courses. Probably the most common thing is people that are feeling like their lives are spread out in a lot of different areas and are hoping to find a planner that's going to make all of that integration easy. Sometimes I can come up with some good suggestions. Other times it's more of the systems that need tweaking, or maybe even there are too many life buckets happening overall. And then the second really common line of questioning has to do with keeping track of all the tasks that come at us all the time so that we can prioritize them effectively and not be stressed out by them, knowing what's on your plate and being able to relax when you're not having to do something. So interestingly, I feel like task management kind of has this twofold benefit. If you know what is going on in your life and what you have coming, number one, it can be done more efficiently sometimes. Getting ahead of things means you can order things more ahead of time or you can prepare certain things, but it also means that you are not stressed about the unknown and what might be on your plate. You have a better idea of when you can actually relax and know that, hey, you know what? I've got stuff assigned for next week, but it's doable. I've captured it all, and now it is time to rest on the couch. So if nothing else, even though you might think that Airtight task management has to do with productivity and getting all the things done, I'm actually hoping that this episode and some of these tactics end up bringing you a little bit more peace. But before we get to that, I'm going to just give a little bit of an update on kind of Planner Life 2026 so far and some of my goals. And I know this has been a very tumultuous year for many of us. The news has been heart-wrenching. And so in many ways, it kind of feels small or silly to be talking about different colored pens. But for me, that's been one way I've coped with all of it. And I do feel like it's important to remember that there are bright spots, even if we're living in stressful times. And I feel very grateful to be able to enjoy some really, really fun moments over the year so far. And I don't want to take those for granted. So just a little bit of an update. I am using all of the items in my 2026 planner stack so far. And I'm kind of proud of that, honestly. I can't say that that's been the case for every year at the start of February, but it is for 2026 so far. If you want to see what those items are, you can see my video on YouTube. I'll link to that where I go through my 2026 planner stack. Fun fact, I thought maybe I would do this one on YouTube too, but I don't know, it's been a day. And it takes a lot for me to get up on video. So hopefully next week, or maybe I'll do a little mini companion task management video to accompany this episode. That would be kind of fun. So watch out for that. But anyway, in terms of my planner stack, I'm really enjoying it. I did lean into the official Hobonichi color scheme for January. There's a different grid line color in each month of the Hobonichi cousin, and I actually bought some Uniball 1 pens that are color coordinated that Hobonichi sells. I do think they were one of the reasons my package took 2 months to get to me, but kind of worth it because I'm enjoying those pens. So today is the second day of February, I believe, as this airs. So I'm excited to be switching from my red, orange, and gray color scheme to my brown and purple. And that doesn't sound terribly attractive, but the colors are working for me and I'm kind of having fun with the seasonality of it all and generally just enjoying all the items in my stack and some of the analog ways that I've been tracking things. For example, I finally managed to use the Hobonichi Weeks. I've been using it to track fitness and workouts and health-related stats, so I've been having fun with that. Now, in terms of like what that has actually meant for getting some of the goals that I talked about done, some things have been better than others. And honestly, my January goals, not sure. I think some of them are going to be migrated into February because it was a little bit more of a kind of catch-up month. And I underestimated how much time I'd be spending guesting on podcasts and doing things related to the book. No regrets on any of that stuff, but it has taken a lot of time and bandwidth. So the things that I would say have gone well have been the book launch stuff. Proud of the energy that I have put into that. Of course, I could always do more, but I feel like I did what I could do, and I'm proud of that. I did manage to fit in 2 date nights with my husband in January, which we planned at the start of the month, and that went great, and we enjoyed it. I've been using the Opal app to manage my screen time, and I'm continuing to find it really helpful. Honestly, like my mindless scrolling and even checking behaviors are at an all-time low, so I'm super happy about that. I've gotten a lot of kind of future planning tasks that were on my yearly list done, like setting up our summer trip and things like that. And I even made the first step on my big decluttering goal in emailing 2 local decluttering experts. I just have to set up a Zoom meeting and choose one. And then I think I'll have that in-person support that I know that I need at this point. From a fitness standpoint, I've been enjoying and being pretty consistent with my strength training. I think I only missed 1 or 2 days in the month, and Pilates as well. My email inbox has been more under control, which has felt wonderful. I really dislike being behind, as we'll talk about. That is an uneasy feeling when it comes to task management. And being able to stay on top of that has definitely just helped my overall mindset. And I've been playing lots of piano. Things I haven't done as much as I'd wanted to are I have not painted my nails much at all. I will say my nails are pretty presentable because I think what I was trying to prevent was walking around with hideously chipped nails that were a mess, and they're just unpolished, but I did buff them. Someone gave me a buff recommendation, and at least they look presentable. I have not played any cross stitch yet. I have not really played with fountain pens, so plenty left to do in my 2026 goals that I am excited about. And there's definitely been ups and downs, moody lows, and some really fun moments too. So that's just kind of where we are as we are entering this second month of the year. All right, so we are going to get into our core topic today, which is task management. And the first piece of task management that I think is really important to consider is, where are the tasks coming to you? And this has to do with really understanding where all of your inboxes live. Where are things getting to you that are things that might need to be done or addressed or filed away? And I actually include this as a big activity in Best Laid Plans Academy that I've done in the past. Everyone identifies their inbox, and then they create a plan for how to manage each of them. And you may think, oh, well, I just have one email inbox. But your inboxes are your physical mail, your various email inboxes, your texts, your random other chats like in WhatsApp or other apps, your sports team apps, your work chat machines, your EMR if you're a physician or whatever kind of task manager you use in your industry. There are so many. It's not just one inbox. And we need to have a logical way that makes sense to address the tasks that come in at the right cadence. We don't want to be looking at all of these things all the time, or we'd never do anything else and we drive ourselves nuts. And we also don't want to be checking our email once a week. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but there's plenty of territory in between. And I have found that the more thoughtful we can be about these cadences and how we actually handle what's in the inbox when we get in there, the better off we are in terms of knowing what's on the table. Now, in terms of the benefits of having great task management, it's not just about getting things done. Getting things done is great, and it is true that often being aware of a task a little bit in advance can make that task easier. Think, if you're trying to book a hotel reservation, there are going to be more options if it's ahead of time. But in addition to that, when you know what is on your plate, you can also relax better by understanding that, hey, I may not have everything done, but each task is in its place. Some of them are scheduled for the future. Some of them I'm doing now. And when I have nothing urgent happening, I can actually relax and enjoy my afternoon or my evening or my weekend. So managing your tasks isn't just about accomplishing things, but it's about having more peace within the task management itself. So you've thought about your inboxes, you've thought about processing your inboxes, and let's say you have that completely dialed. Well, let's go a little bit through the processing itself. So the first question you're going to ask as you get an item in one of these boxes is it a calendar item? I highly recommend doing your task processing next to a calendar or whatever planner you use. Maybe you have Google Calendar open in another window or another device. Maybe you have your paper planner next to you, but if it's a calendar item, that's easy. You put it in your calendar, move on. Is it an email requiring a response but not yet a task? These are kind of sticky. These are the emails that will sit there. And if you are processing your inbox, I give you permission, the first pass, to perhaps leave them there if you are not in a major kind of email processing mindset. If they're not urgent and you know this is going to need thought, you can go on to the next thing and maybe save that for a more detailed inbox processing session. The third kind of item that might be in there would be a piece of info that you want to put somewhere so that you can find it later. It's not something to do, but it's an informational piece that you just don't want to lose. So you could either attach that to a calendar date, perhaps. You could put it in a someday maybe list that you look at once a season, or maybe you're just filing it away and making sure it's somewhere that can be searchable. Maybe you find your email client is good enough, in fact, or if not, maybe you're putting it in something like Apple Notes or Notion so you know you could search for it later. So those are the first three things it could be. It could be a calendar item, it could be an email requiring response, but not really a task, and it could be a piece of info you want to put somewhere. And then finally, it can be a task. I guess it can also be junk. Delete those or archive those, whatever you want to do with those. But the last major category is it a task? So we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to talk about a framework that you might want to think through once you have found a task in any one of your various inboxes. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Mint Mobile. It can be tempting to stick with what you have just because it works, meaning you might not change your phone plan even though you're paying a much higher price than is actually necessary. But if you can break through the inertia, you'll get a much better deal at Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile offers the same services your old carrier does, but at a much better price. You get to bring your own phone and number, activate with eSIM in minutes, and start saving immediately. No long-term contracts and no hassle. Ready to stop paying more than you have to? New customers can make the switch today, and for a limited time, get unlimited premium wireless for just $15 per month. Switch now at mintmobile.com/BLP. That's mintmobile.com/BLP. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. Additional terms apply. See mintmobile.com. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Green Chef. It's February, and hopefully any nutrition goals you had for the year are going strong. If you're looking to make things extra convenient with a meal kit that really delivers on its nutritional promises, I highly recommend checking out Green Chef. Their boxes are filled with real, farm-sourced ingredients, including certified organic produce and responsibly sourced proteins and seafood. Their meals will help you reach your wellness goals with options like Mediterranean, high protein, high fiber, plant-based, and more, all designed to support healthier habits. I can personally attest to how delicious these meals are too. I love all the seasonal flavors, and my kids really like them as well. Right now, go to greenchef.com/bestlaidgraza and use code bestlaidgraza to get started with 50% off Green Chef and a free Graza olive oil set in your second and third boxes. This 50% offer is only available for a limited time, so don't wait. That's code bestlaidgraza at greenchef.com/bestlaidgraza. Today's episode is brought to you with support from IXL. We're in that long stretch of school between the beginning of the year and spring break, and this is the perfect time to reinforce foundations and help your kids build confidence with their learning. IXL makes it easy to keep routine steady and make learning progress visible, even on the days that feel harder. IXL offers interactive practice across math, language arts, science, and social studies from pre-K through 12th grade. IXL personalizes learning for each child, keeps them engaged, and gives parents clear insight into progress. My kids have used IXL for years to learn and reinforce concepts, and it can be used as enrichment, review, or part of a homeschool curriculum. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Best Laid Plans listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/plans. Visit IXL.com/plans, PLANS, to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. All right, so we have established you have found a task. So here are the options. And you know what? The nice thing is there is a limited number of options. It's not infinite here. If you have a task identified, you could do it, especially if it's super quick. I mean, basically, if you note that doing it would take as long as writing it down or processing it, then you might as well do it. An example of that would be like, oh, I see that I didn't cancel Wednesday's Pilates yet, and that takes me 1 second in the app. Don't capture that task. Do the task. So again, this can get unwieldy because sometimes things that seem quick aren't so quick and you can then get lost. But if it's really, really straightforward, I invite you to just do it. The next option is you can schedule it. So many tasks, it's just going to make sense to put them somewhere specific. You can put them on a day if you don't have a specific time you need to do them, or you can put it on a very specific time, especially if you're the kind of person that doesn't get annoyed if you've kind of assigned yourselves things arbitrarily in a given day. Some people really rebel against this. They do not want to wake up on Wednesday and be like, why did I tell myself I had to do my podcast ad scripts at 1 p.m.? Like, there's no real reason for that, and I'm annoyed. Some people find that annoying. Other people might find that really, really freeing. So you know yourself. You can schedule it. You can tether it to a specific hour, if that makes sense, or you can tether it to a specific day. Or If this task is not so time specific and it doesn't call out to you as being like perfect for a specific time block, you can use a broader frame of time, such as a week. Now, I think more than a week could be unwieldy, so I really recommend using the week in this way. And what I mean is, for me, many tasks end up on my weekly planner spread for me to do sometime during that week. Might get to it during the week, might get to it in the evening, might get to it in the weekend, but it's a task for that week. Or maybe I have a task that's like, quasi-urgent, not like urgent, and I already know my week is packed. I will tether it to the next week, which is very easy to do in my planning system because it's dated and I just put it on the left-hand column on the weekly spread. If you plan digitally, you could easily tether it to a specific day in the week, or you could have a list that's this week and another list that is next week. So there are many specific ways that you could do this, but the idea is you could put it on exact time, you could put it on exact day, or you could put it to a specific week or even a bucket that says like next few weeks. The key is for this to work, you need to look at all of these buckets without fail. One other place that task could go, in addition to what I just said, would be a much longer term list. So if it's a task and it's more of like if all the stars align, then maybe I want to see this task. I'm not really sure when I'm going to do it. Maybe that goes in what I call a someday maybe list, or what David Allen called a someday maybe list. And in my book, I refer to it as a someday possibilities list. But again, if you're going to be putting tasks in these buckets, the key is that you have a system for looking at all of these buckets. For me, that's super easy. Goes in my planner. I know I'm going to look at my weekly spread in my planner every single day. If you're using Google Calendar or a digital resource and you have a list that says this week, amazing. Just know that you are going to look at that every single day as you plan your day. And then you also have to make sure you have a great plan for migrating undone tasks. The other place that this can fall apart is if you assign something to a day, don't get it done, and then just move on to the next day without thinking about it. If you do that, you will be sad because the task won't get done, you'll forget about it, and you'll find yourself probably in reactive mode, having to pick up the pieces later. So part of doing this means that you have to have a ritual for looking at your tasks for the day. It could be the next morning, it doesn't have to be the same day. I often process my day's task the morning after as I'm planning my next day, but I look to see, are there any undone tasks here? And if so, where did they go? Did they go on the next day? Did they just get reassigned to the week? Or did they get thrown out? Did I decide that actually it wasn't that important to do that thing? But it does need to be processed in some sense so that you don't lose them. Another really important piece of this is on-the-fly tasks. And you're going to hear an example of this in the question that's coming up. But if you have something come at you like, I don't know, someone runs into you in the hall and they're like, oh, I was wanting to bring my kid in for an appointment. Can you have your office call me and set one up? That is something where your brain is going to be chugging over time if you try to keep that in your head, and you then might forget about it. So you need somewhere to put these kind of okay, need to make sure I'm processing it, but I'm not next to my system types of things. And I would suggest doing perhaps email, emailing it to yourself super quick, because then you know it's going to be at the top of your email. And as long as you check email a few times a day, that's going to then bubble up. And eventually you're going to see that when you're with your planner or task management system, and you'll be able to capture it appropriately. You could text yourself and leave it unread if you look at your texts frequently. That can be a great way. I use that when it's honestly even more critical than email that I not miss something. I will text myself because I know I'm going to see that frequently throughout the day. Or if you happen to have a written planner with you that you use, great. Or maybe some people do something like an index card that they carry around with them in their pocket. Or even I've seen a sticky note that's attached to a phone that they just put on the fly stuff throughout the day, and they're planning on crumpling it up at night, but not until things are captured into the system where they know they're going to look. So really, that is task management. It's a lot and it takes practice, but the more that you are systematic about this, the less scary it can be, I think. I mean, truthfully, again, there's only a finite number of things you can do with any one task. And a lot of times the answer has to do with just where it gets scheduled. And again, that second piece of always looking back in the places where you've assigned yourself stuff and catching whenever you haven't done something to move it forward. Those are kind of the keys. And so putting this all together, I'm going to read the listener question that kind of inspired this whole episode. It comes from an anonymous listener, and she writes, I've been listening to the podcast for about a year, and I love it. I recently completed medical residency where I was in survival mode all the time, and now one of my big 2026 goals is to set up a planning and life management system that works for me and my family so we can start living more intentionally. One big thing I'm struggling with relates to Airtight task capture. I've enjoyed implementing nested goals as a way to make sure my big annual and seasonal goals don't get lost during the year, and so that I know exactly what has to happen on big projects at various time points. However, in my current life, the vast majority of tasks and goals come at me on the fly throughout the week. For example, the daycare will text me to say they are out of wipes, or a patient will send me a document through the EMR that I have to review and respond to. Or I'll do my email clean out and capture on a Thursday and come up with a handful or more of new tasks and projects with various levels of urgency. When I'm hearing about these tasks, I don't always have time in that exact moment to process them, but I don't want the item to get lost. Do you have a place you keep unprocessed task captures lists that you go through later and assign dates in your planner? I'm also a big Cal Newport fan, and I know he recommends keeping a raw text file for these sorts of things, but I'm curious what the approach for you is in your mostly paper-based system. I'm wary of creating too many lists that I will never go through because it's too overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I love this question. And yes, Cal Newport talks about doing something where he has an open text file on his computer, and anything that pops into his mind or comes at him goes in that text file. And that works great if you're sitting at a computer for most of the day, and he's a computer science professor and an author, so I think he does sit at the computer for most of the day, but a lot of us don't, or maybe we're at the half the day and this person's in patient care, so she might be more kind of running around, and her computer might be a work computer where she can't have a text file, so it gets a little bit more complicated. So when I responded to this listener, I wrote, I have so many thoughts. Now, my first thought is I would keep electronic medical record tasks as a separate universe. They're its own inbox. You live in that inbox, you process it in that land, and none of that stuff ever makes its way into your personal stuff. I mean, you probably know that. And of course, there's like HIPAA compliance issues there as well. But I mean, I would say if a patient is emailing you, your goal is to, or not emailing you, sending you a document through that record. Every day you're at work clinically, hopefully you're mostly emptying that record, and therefore everything is getting done in a relatively timely manner. Now, I know some people have backlogs, but I usually argue when someone has a big backlog that honestly, they're probably doing the same amount of work anyway. They just got behind at some point, and catching up will probably make things more efficient because they're not going to get pinged multiple times about something, which just wastes more time. So I would highly, highly encourage you to get in the mindset of I clear my EMR out to the extent I can every single time I'm at work, and those tasks never make it into the rest of my system. So sorry, that's specific, kind of physician specific, but I did want to throw that out there. For everything else, I would not pressure you to find the perfect task capture as long as you're capturing it somewhere. When you're doing your email cleanouts, you might want to think about separating the sort of clean out process and responding to things to dealing with tasks if it's too overwhelming to do both at once. But you say you don't have time to capture things. But if you're looking at it and you're like in that inbox clean out mode, I guess I'd challenge you to be like, let's capture this imperfectly. Meaning like, we're going to get it into the planner, maybe not to a very specific hour or day, but we're at least going to throw it into the week so I know what it is and I'm going to archive it and I can move on so that you can process things without maybe getting entirely granular. And then on a daily level, you'll have your weekly list and you'll be able to pull in what makes sense for a given day. I mean, basically all the things I said in this episode so far about how to deal with task capture, but I would not be super perfectionistic about capturing it perfectly in the exact right spot rather than getting it into your system in some way. And I would use those on the fly tactics I talked about, whether it's a Post-it note or an index card or text messages to yourself. As long as you know you're going to clean those things out, process them, crumple up the index card, whatever it is, then you know that those things are not going to exit your system without being dealt with. So that would be kind of my paper-based or more mobile equivalent maybe of having a text file on the computer. So I hope that helps. I hope this whole episode helped. I know how incredibly stressful it can be to feel like you have balls in the air and you're just not sure exactly how many and when things are due. And so I really encourage anyone struggling with task management to get just really, really into their processes. I've done an episode where I talk about emptying my own inbox, and I kind of emptied it in real time just maybe a month ago or so. So I'll link to that one in the show notes as well. And if you have a different method of task capture or you have a specific task capturing tool that works really, really well for you, I'm always open to learning about it. So please email me, let me know how you are capturing and processing your tasks to keep them airtight so you know what's on your plate and you know what is not. All right, I'll be back next week with more planning fun, maybe a YouTube video, we'll see. And in the meantime, stay well, and I hope you are having a beautiful start to your February.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.